one of the things that we wanted to do, as I was talking to Pat about this today, and Pat, Pat and I were, sort of excitedly discussing the top eight and the matchups and so forth. And one of the things I've got to admit right here, I'm going to confess to you that I was a little bit hesitant. I always liked Plumevale, but I was a little bit hesitant on this whole Wall of Reverence thing. Pat was the one who identified Wall of Reverence right away. I remember him calling me the day after that card was spoiled and saying, "Hey, I really think this card could be neat." And he was right. He was really right. I was even to the last days of testing, wanting to push our testing a little bit towards trying a bit more of a creature-free version of this deck, where we weren't so much relying on these walls. But the guys were really right when it came to that. And this combination of Wall of Reverence plus Plumevale is really nifty. And what they allow us to do, Pat was pointing this out to me today, that they allow us to do something even if our opponent isn't doing something. So, for instance, if our opponent casts a Planeswalker or a Glorious Anthem to pump up all their creatures or something like that, and if we just have a creature kill spell, in our hand and nothing else to do, then we're sort of a bit wasting time. Another very important David Mills rule in Magic is that he who uses his mana most efficiently, he or she who uses mana most efficiently wins the game. And so we want to be using, really leveraging our mana every single turn of the game, whether it's at least playing and coming to play tapped land, or getting some value during our end step, countering something as an instant, or playing a nasty permanent. We want to do one of the. We want to constantly have our mana supply cranking and cranking and cranking and working in our favor. And these walls really help us do that because they allow us to sort of proactively throw something out, and especially in combination, once again, where these guys are really right is in combination with Volcanic Fallout in our main deck, and very wisely the guys put some Infests in the sideboard. That's a really neat combo because the walls will typically survive after the Infest or after the Volcanic Fallout, and our opponent just has to start rebuilding. And of course there's a lot of card economy cards out there where they can rebuild, but we're going to make him do it. We're going to make him cast another, make a bunch more Bitter Blossom tokens before they attack. For instance, Pat pointed out that for Bitter Blossom to come into and start coming after a Wall of Reverence or a Plumevale, especially Wall of Reverence, if they don't have Terror, they have to pretty much make have 4 tokens ready to swing for it to really be worth it for them. So now they've got 5 creatures in play. They have a Summoning Sickness token and 4 others, and now they're finally ready to attack our Wall of Reverence. And at that point, we may just blow them out with a Volcanic Fallout. And at that point, we've gained 5 life. They've lost 5 life. Actually, they've lost 7 life. We've gained a net of 3 life because we lost 2 from the Volcanic Fallout. And that's a real blowout. I mean, that's bad news. That's a real loss for the Fairy deck or for the Black-White token deck. And now they're kind of starting all over, and that's not fun for them. So really nifty. This Wall of Reverence, again, it's a nifty new card, and we really wanted to understand it. There's never really been a card like it. The way it kind of, one of the knocks on walls is that they kind of have this passive nature to them, where they're often not gaining us any sort of advantage in the game other than sitting around as a deterrent. But both the Plumevale and the Wall of Reverence have this way of getting us ahead. The Plumevale by surprising our opponent, or at least by influencing their decisions. A lot of times you'll see people won't attack because they'll be afraid of our Plumevales, and that's great. And of course the Wall of Reverence can gain us between 1 and 4 life a turn. Great in combination with Plumevale. For instance, one of the things that can happen if you're playing against red, talk about a blowout, is at the end of your turn 3 busting down a Plumevale, and then turn 4 playing a Wall of Reverence and immediately gaining 4 life. And now what are they going to do? Double incinerate the Wall of Reverence, and they still have to deal with a Plumevale, and you've gained a bunch of life, and it's just a mess. And we have 3 of them. I mean, so many. Especially we're drawing all these cards. Sorry, the screen scrolled a little bit there. So the walls are a very important part of the mechanic of the deck. And the final cards that we'll talk about, we have 3 Miser cards here. As our friend Jamie Parker loves to say, he's the first person I remember back from when he was just a kid on the Pro Tour, running around Miser this and Miser that. And Dave Williams loves saying that as well, Miser, Miser, Miser. So we've got a Miser Pithing Needle, and this guy is really nifty. The Pithing Needle is primarily for Planeswalkers, but it's also going to shut down Mutavaults. It's going to take care of Wimbrisk heights. Oftentimes, if your opponent has 2 Wimbrisk heights in play, especially, you can really that's something that they're kind of counting on, and you're just sticking them. We can also pith Figure of Destiny to kind of keep him a bit under control. Then we've got a Miser Celestial Purge, and this is neat. This may come into play in the top 8 because rather than having a second Terror or something like that, we've got this neat Celestial Purge that can take out Bitter Blossom, It can take out Ijani Vengeant, and a whole range of cards that it can take out. And we really like this card. And then we have a Miser Terror, just to kill stuff and to kind of keep that around there. So that's the main deck. And again, what's the idea of having this one single card? Is that crazy? Well, no, it's really not, because now our opponents have to prepare for it. They may during the Swiss of the tournament, they certainly don't know how many Terrors we have or how many Celestial Purges or Pithing Needles that we have, and it gives us more of a range and more versatility in terms. For instance, right now. In the morning when Gabriel wakes up to face off against his opponent, he's going to be playing against a black-white deck. And my goodness, let me just tell you how much better this Celestial Purge is against black-white than the Terror. I mean, first of all, his opponent is going to be bringing in 2 Scepters of Fouge of his own to try to square off and try to hurt us back with Scepter of Fouge, and Celestial Purge kills it, and that's great. That's a really, really nice situation for us. We can also Pithing Needle it. As well. So we've got actually more answers to Scepter of Fouge than he has Scepters of Fouge in the first place. And of course, we're going to bring in some other stuff. I'm not going to go into how exactly how, but we've got answers here for them. We've got these nice infests and so forth in the sideboard, and another Celestial Purge. But what these cards allow us to do, again, we're a control deck, and we're going to be looking for the answers. If we, as the control deck, are getting the answers at the right time with the right mana to cast them, we're going to win. We're going to win. That's what's going to happen. And so by having these Miser cards and having some 3-ofs and so forth, some 3-ofs and some 1-ofs, we're really giving ourselves a lot of extra versatility. All right, let's dig into our sideboard here. I'm going to move the window here a little bit. And let me see if I can drag these guys over so we can see them. All right, not the world's greatest view of things, but it'll at least help me organize things a bit. Okay, let's have a look at our sideboard. I love these infests, and the reason for the infest is because of the protection from red creatures, the Burlington Forge Tenders that our opponents are typically going to bring in to shelter their guys from volcanic fallout, and we're going to really be able to kind of catch them in a bit of a quandary, oftentimes with infest or with Wrath of God. Wrath, again, is another sweeper. We considered playing Scourglass, actually, particularly for the black-white matchup, and we think Scourglass is a little bit better against black-white because it allows us to untap and have the board be cleared of enchantments and planeswalkers and of course, their creatures. But Wrath of God is a fine card as well. We felt it was much better against red than Scourglass was, and that was going to put us in a better shape. So that was a nice call that the guys made. We've got a second Celestial Purge to kind of bolster that, and that's great. Very glad to have that. We've got 2 of these Negates, and Negate is just a neat card. I imagine there's a very good chance that we'll be sideboarding those quite a bit come top 8. Great against fairies, great against 5-color. I don't know how good it is against Boat Brew, but oftentimes against these decks, they're bringing in more planeswalkers and such from the sideboard, so that actually makes it a little bit better. We've got the Miser Wispmare, and that's going to, of course, come in and help us against Glorious Anthem and against Bitter Blossom. And it's just a nice big bogey that's out there, big 1/3 guy hanging out. We can also get him back. Talked a little bit already about Scepter of Fouge, and that's primarily against other control decks. And I really got to say, I don't see us. I mean, it's pretty tough to beat if we're playing against 5-color control and 5-color control. If we get the Scepter of Fouge down, that's a big advantage for us. Now, Gabriel's a really huge fan of Remove Soul. We actually talked about it a bunch at Worlds, and it's one of his favorite cards, so I'm not surprised to see a Miser Remove Soul. And I like it. I like that in this top 8, it's best 3 out of 5. So for as many as 4 games, our opponents are going to have to wonder if that Miser Remove Soul is around there somewhere,